Can you hear us now?
Can you hear us? Okay.
Yes, I
We're
can.
back.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We
very
are
good.
back. Going old school. Old school. Okay. All right. Okay. Welcome back to the Yoga Sutras. And we are now going to go to part 2 of the Yoga Sutras. We are in book 2, and the name of book 2 is Sadhana Pada. So just looking at this, what does sadhana mean? So sadhana means practice, dedicated, devoted, and practice. Okay, so this is the second book of the Yoga Sutras. Sadhana means practice. By the practice of yogic discipline, one is led towards spiritual illumination. So this term, so we have sadhana meaning practice, and we have another word, sadhaka, which is the one who practices. Okay, so Samadhi Pada describes so in the last book, it's about people who are almost to the goal. Okay, in Sadhamapada, they too are told how to begin their sadhana and work towards spiritual emancipation. So this is everybody else. So the first book was for some people. The second book, everybody else. So whether you are new at practice or a little bit more experienced at it, yeah, it teaches you the proper attitudes, mindsets, and habits in order to be more successful. So as Iyengar says, Sadhanapada therefore carries a torch for both the spiritually evolved and the uninitiated. It teaches the complete beginner who knows no yoga how he may rise through his sadhana to the level of high aspirants. So let's start our journey through the Yoga Sutras of book 2 with the first line, the first sutra of book 2, Tapaha Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. Okay. Now you can see me as well. Okay. So tapa is translated as heat, but more of like the burning desire. In this case, tapaha means burning desire to reach a certain attainment. Okay? Burning desire means that you really want it and you don't mind being uncomfortable to get it. Okay. Swadhyaya, self-study, self-reflection. Ishvara meaning the Vedic term for God. Pranidhana is like surrendering, directing upwards. Okay. Kriya Yoga is yoga of action. So Kriya is not only any normal action because karma is action. Kriya is actually a pure action. So it's not just a normal action, it's a pure action. So Kriya Yoga means the yoga of pure action. Okay. It seems maybe a little bit confusing to some people because we think of yoga as action. But remember that the real meaning of yoga is union. Okay? The real meaning of yoga is union. So when you say Kriya Yoga, it's how your pure actions connect you. So it's a pure action that connects you. This is what Kriya Yoga means. Okay. So there are, he's saying, three very important things. So the first important thing is, first you need to really want it. And you need to be okay with being uncomfortable because you really want it. That's one. Swadhyaya. The second thing is you need to be looking inward at yourself about how you feel, what's happening inside of you. A lot of people are doing the action, but they're disconnected. They might not even be in their bodies, like when we were doing the toe cruncher. Remember? And we were talking about how you're doing the toe cruncher and you're doing it, but you wish you weren't there, so you're somewhere else completely because you don't want to feel your toes. Right? Is Kriya Yoga one of the classic yoga schools like Raja and Karma? Okay, good question. Okay, Kriya Yoga, as I am teaching, is actually older than I think it's in Raja Yoga basically. It's not one of the things talked about in Bhagavad Gita because that's a little older. But after the Bhagavad Gita and during Patanjali's time, when Patanjali wrote this book, Kriya Yoga was happening. Because Kriya Yoga is a different aspect of Raja Yoga. So yes, in that way, it is like in the same genre of Patanjali. But Karma Yoga is way older. That's during Krishna's time. That's the Bhagavad Gita. So you have Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Those are much older. But Kriya Yoga, same time as Patanjali. So same time this book is written. Okay. So again, Swadhyaya, you need to face what's inside of yourself and not be somewhere else. And Ishvara Pranidhana is surrender to God or offering it up to God. So summarizing, you've got to really want it. You need to be there facing whatever is happening to you inside of you. And you need to offer it up to God. And these three things are elements of sadhana. So this line is actually describing your attitude when you're doing yoga practice. So I'll say it again. So now the assumption here is he's talking about sadhana. He's talking about practice. So I'll say the line again so you will understand. When you practice and you really, really want it bad enough that you don't mind being uncomfortable and that you're facing yourself internally and you're offering it up to God. You're dedicating this practice to God. Your practice becomes a pure action that aligns you and connects you to God. You understand? This is what this line means. So when we're practicing, we're not just mechanically doing it just for the sake of doing it until you're done. Because that's not a pure action. It's not Kriya Yoga, meaning you're not 100% aligned and it's not connecting you. Okay, do you understand? And if you're not looking within yourself to check really what's going on, then again, nothing's gonna happen. And if you cannot see the big picture of your practice, how an opportunity for growth this practice can be for you, and how it connects you to the different parts of you that you're missing, then the results are less than they could be. Okay? So this is what this sutra means. So defining, Patanjali got everything right except for this one. So tapas, I'm Patanjali. Iyengar got everything right except for this one. Tapas is the burning desire to burn away the impurities of the body, senses, and mind. So you really want it. Swadhyaya is the repetition of sacred mantras and the study of spiritual sacred texts. No, it's looking inward. And yeah, you can study things outside of you, but until you see what's inside of you, the yoga is not going to help. Because we don't do yoga with our intellectual mind. We do yoga with ourselves, with our subconscious. You know, we're talking about the last time. Remember when we did that hip opener sequence? And I changed the language so that you can take ownership, and the subconscious can decide to take ownership for the pose so that you can be 100% in your body. Then the yoga works. But if you're doing the pose, but your mind is somewhere else and you're not facing how you're feeling, it's not going to work. 40 years from now, you're still going to be the same. You've not been able to solve any of the difficulties that you're having because you're not holding space for you to feel. And finally, Ishvara Pranidhana is surrender of one's body, mind, and soul to God through love for Him, expressed through your practice. So practice has an element of bhakti or devotion. What are you surrendering to? You're trusting the process. You're trusting the process will get you somewhere. You're trusting that when I'm ready, I will get what I need to fix myself. When I'm ready to face myself inside, God is going to help me by sending me a good teacher or the right information or advice through someone or something like a book or a video that's going to help me to get to where I need to be. I trust this. And therefore, I'm being guided. God is helping me. I know this and I surrender to it. And we cannot remove a spiritual element really from anything we do. I mean, this doesn't mean that, does that mean then yoga is a religion? No, because if you apply this statement to everything you do in your life, you'll probably be more successful. You can think of your life as sadhana and think of what are the things that you want to achieve in your life and apply this statement. If you really want it, that you're willing to sacrifice to get there. And if you're willing to really dig into yourself to see what needs to be done, what needs to change, how you feel, tap into there and find out in your heart center, how does it sit with you? And if you trust God to give you what you need at the time that you need it to help you on your way, when you move, you're moving in a very pure way. And this pure way connects you with everything. And your action becomes successful. Okay? So you can think of Kriya Yoga or the yoga of action, the yoga of pure action, not only in practice, but also in life. Anyway, life, the practice is a mini version of you in life. And if you take Sadhanapada as a book, I feel that Sadhanapada is one of the earliest self-help manuals. You know, that's really trending now, all these self-help manuals, you know, like The Secret and whatever, that Abraham book that someone lent me. Have you heard of that? Something Abraham book. Anyway, it's all these self-help things going around. This is the earliest one. It's talking about the same thing. You will see. Okay. All right. So none of this stuff is new. It's just repackaged. Okay. So let's move on. Okay. So in Sutra 2, Samadhi bhavanartaha klesha tanukaranartascha. The practice of yoga reduces the afflictions and leads to samadhi. So going back to Sutra 1 and linking these two, because the sutras kind of come together. So we're doing our actions in a pure way with tapas, swadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana. And as we practice in this way, our afflictions are reduced and we end up experiencing samadhi. So the next important word in our exploration, the next important Sanskrit word is klesha, which is affliction. Okay. So by reducing afflictions to a minimum or even eradicating them, Kriya Yoga promotes profound meditation, which is a precursor to samadhi. The purpose of this yoga is to minimize all impediments to meditation and thus bring intelligence to full, vibrant life. So the kleshas are obstacles on the path of yoga. But the more we do actions as prescribed in the first sutra, the more your kleshas will reduce and the more the samadhi states are prevalent. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, it's very easy to understand, but now let's start to explore what are the kleshas, what are these obstacles to our practice of yoga and their effect on us, basically. So these are the 5 kleshas. There are 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the third sutra, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha are the 5 kleshas. So let's start with the definitions. Avidya, lack of spiritual knowledge or spiritual ignorance. These are in order. So the first klesha is avidya. That's where it all starts. Lack of spiritual knowledge. Ignorance. Ignorance of what? Basically, ignorance of the fact that you are everything and that you are part of God. This is the first ignorance. We've forgotten that we are a high vibrational being, the breath of God in human form. We think God is far away, separate. We think nature is separate. We think other people are not you. This is the first ignorance. Okay? Which leads to asmita, meaning the ego, the I-ness. So because you're ignorant about who you really are, then you think that only this is you. This is asmita. Only this is me. You're someone else. That is a tree. And God is far away. Okay? So asmita, the ego. And because we feel that we are not that, but because of avidya, we feel incomplete because we've blocked off all the other parts of you. You now feel incomplete. You start looking outside of this body for what will complete you without even realizing that that's all you as well. So you start to have desires. Raga is desire. So you start to fall in love with objects, to feel that if I have that object and I can somehow put it inside of me, I will feel more complete. But then it never ends because you put that object in you, you eat an ice cream, and after a while, you're incomplete again, so you eat another ice cream. Then after a while, ice cream doesn't cut it anymore, so you find some, and just never ends. And then we develop something called dvesha. You start to dislike ice cream. You've had enough ice cream. Okay? It's made you sick, and now you avoid it. You hate it now. Okay? Okay? It not only did it not make you feel better, but now it makes you feel worse. So you have this data bank of all the things that make you feel bad. And what you do is you start avoiding those things. So now we have dislike. So we have desire and we have dislike. And then it becomes a tug of war of desire and dislike. Oh, I want that. I don't want that, you know. Start to, but you never get better. You never feel any better. And then life is over. And you never got anywhere and you don't want to go. Abhinivesha, fear of death, love of life, clinging to life. So these are the 5 afflictions that prevent you from achieving a samadhi state. Because the samadhi state is opposite to all of that. In a samadhi state, you know you're one with everything and you feel your connection with the divine so strongly. So the 5 afflictions which disturb the equilibrium of consciousness are ignorance or lack of wisdom, ego, pride of the ego or the sense of I, attachment to pleasure, aversion to pain, fear of death, and clinging to life. So there are different levels of afflictions. So Iyengar says intellectual, emotional, and instinctive. So avidya and asmita being in the field of intelligence. Here, lack of spiritual knowledge combined with pride or arrogance inflates the ego, causing conceit and the loss of one's sense of balance. Raga and dvesha belong to emotions and feelings. I hate that, I like that. It's emotional. Raga is desire and attachment. Dvesha is hatred and aversion. Succumbing to excessive desires and attachments, or allowing oneself to be carried away by expressions of hatred, creates disharmony between body and mind, which may lead to psychosomatic disorders. Abhinivesha is instinctive, the desire to prolong one's life. And usually, the thing with abhinivesha is, if the ego has decided that certain things outside of you are part of your life, then this instinctive desire to prolong one's life is going to be extended to the instinctive desire to hold on to all these things like they were your life. Okay? And it's so subconscious that you don't even realize how you're acting unless someone calls you out. Okay. So the root causes of these 5 afflictions are the behavioral functions and thoughts of the various spheres of the brain. You can say that they're in various spheres of the brain. But at the end of the day, what we need to do now is understand that if you practice yoga properly, these things will fall away. And what is the formula for practicing yoga properly? Again, you go back to Sutra 1. Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. And then your actions become pure actions and align you. Okay. All right. So, looking at these kleshas one by one, let's talk about avidya. So we're going to talk about them one by one. And now that I've given you the big summary, we're going to start to talk about them in Q&A, each klesha, so that we can have practical advice on how to actually deal with them. Okay, so avidya, Sutra 4, Kshetram Uttaresham Prasupta Tanu Vichinna Udaranam. Lack of true knowledge is the source of all pains and sorrows, whether dormant, attenuated, interrupted, or fully active. So avidya, again, lack of spiritual knowledge. So not just any knowledge. We're talking about the knowledge that of who you are, the knowledge of who you really are, that you are everything. Nord, can you get me some water? I'm drying up. Okay, so this is the avidya that we're talking about. So kshetra means a field, a place. Uttaresham, that is followed by prashupta, dormant. Okay, tanu, thin or lean, vichina, hidden, and udaranam, fully active. Okay. So avidya is the source of all the other kleshas. Okay. These afflictions may be dormant, meaning they're hidden. They're in you somewhere, but they're hidden. A little bit thinly present. You kind of feel that way slightly. Or completely active. Are hindrances to self-enlightenment. So some of them you're not aware of. Some of them you feel a little. And some of them you really feel it's a problem. Either way, it's still getting in the way. Patanjali designates avidya as the breeding ground of all afflictions, whatever its nature. And so, speaking of spiritual ignorance a little bit more, we go to Sutra 5. Anitya asuchi dukkha anatmasu nitya suchi sukha atma kyatihi avidya. Mistaking the transient for the permanent, the impure for the pure, pain for pleasure, and that which is not the self for the self. All this is called lack of spiritual knowledge, avidya. So let's break this down. You forgot that you're everything. You forgot that you're part of everything. You forgot that you're part of God. You only remember or only are aware of that this is all there is. So what happens? You mistake the transient for the permanent. The permanent is your soul is eternal because you're part of everything. You don't die, really. The only thing that dies is this body. In other words, you park this rent-a-car and you get into another one. okay? Or you go somewhere else, okay? Either way, you don't die, okay? Depending on what you believe in, you don't die. You only park this rent-a-car. But you mistake this rent-a-car for you. This is what we mean by mistaking the transient for the permanent. And a lot of people nowadays have this thing where they feel that they're so immersed in this form and put so much attention into it that they forget that this is not going to last. And when faced with death, all of a sudden, they panic. I spent so much time on this, and you're telling me it's gonna go? Yeah, because you forgot. You thought it was permanent. It's not. Okay, the impure for the pure. What is the pure you? The pure you is the remembrance that you're part of God. The pure you is the remembrance of the frequency, the ray of light. You are but a dance of light. You are but vibration. What is the impure? Any other awareness except that. The pain for the pleasure. So, what is painful is that we look outside of ourselves to make us feel good. Because the more you're cutting yourself off from the truth, okay? And that which is not the self for the self. This is not the self. This is not everything. Okay? It's called lack of spiritual knowledge, avidya. So naturally we make mistakes, but when, through want of understanding, we fail to reappraise or reflect, error becomes habit. As a process of thought and action have existed from the beginning of civilization, so has trial and error been used in search of knowledge. But when all doubts have been resolved in the pursuit of sadhana, the discriminative power of intelligence comes to an end and pure wisdom alone remains, in which perception and action are simultaneous. Experimental and experiential knowledge come together and meet. Objective knowledge and subjective knowledge become one. This is pure knowledge. Okay, vidya means knowledge. So avidya means ignorance. So what is pure knowledge? When you feel in your bones that you are one with everything. Okay, which is basically what happens when you hit samadhi. But before that, if you've not been told, or no one told you, or you didn't get it from anyone, you will think that this is all there is. Okay. Any questions about avidya?
Maybe not about avidya, but this complete feeling. I am really confused.
No questions?
The complete feeling of this feeling that we are talking about.
Okay.
How do we really understand it, like in our daily
So,
life?
moving on, we go to asmita. So again, asmita is like the I-ness. Okay. So drak darshana shakyato ekatmata eva asmita. Egoism is the identification of the seer with the instrument powering the seeing. So let's look at the seer. Who is the seer? It's basically the soul driving this body. And the instrument of seeing is what? Well, basically, it's all your koshas. The physical body is an instrument for you to be able to feel the material world through the five senses. The energy body, your chakras, your energy channels, is an instrument for you to feel the astral realms. The thinking mind is an instrument for you to make sense of this experience through analysis. Your intuitive mind is the instrument for you to perceive impressions from outside this body, or to get you in touch with the emotions inside this body. All of your koshas are the instruments of perception. Your Anandamaya kosha is the instrument for the big you to operate in the limited form. So who is the seer? Basically, it's everything. Pure consciousness itself. God. Okay. Egoism is when we forget about that and we identify only with the instruments and not the instrumental power beyond them. Okay? Right. Okay, and so in number 7, so is this ego, it's clear, yes? Now comes the fun stuff. Because yeah, you all know, yeah, I know I have an ego. I know that I have to deal with it. I know I'm everything, even though I can't feel it right now. Theoretically, I think I get it. They're pretty far away. Let's go to something that's a little bit closer to you. And that's raga, desire. Okay? Sukha anushayi ragaha. So pleasure leads to desire and emotional attachment. So sukha means happiness or delight. Anushayi means has a close connection to or followed by. And then raga means like you desire. So dwelling on pleasurable experiences ignites desire and a sense of attraction. So what happens? You eat an ice cream and you enjoy it. Your senses pick it up and your body enjoys it. So your amygdala, part of your brain that records desire, puts ice cream on the list. Ice cream. So now you desire ice cream. Okay, so the hanging on to that pleasurable experience of eating ice cream has put ice cream in your amygdala under the file of desire. Pleasurable experience may generate greed and lust. So now you want to have ice cream all the time because it's written there under desire. Okay, which strengthens attachment. And now you can't live without ice cream. I have to go to Cold Stone. Right? I have to. Okay. Yeah. Which strengthens attachment and stimulate greater craving as one always wants more and more. One becomes absorbed by the pursuit of pleasure and addicted to gratification of the senses. If you think this is all there is, what you're going to do? Well, you're just going to enjoy. Right? What to do? The aspirant may thus forget his chosen path and allow himself to be caught up in sorrow and sickness. So what's wrong with chasing desire? Some people might say, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with enjoying yourself? The problem with the amygdala is, see, it doesn't quite understand the difference between what's good for you and what feels good. It doesn't know the what's good for you part. It will only put things on the list that feel good. And certain things feel really good, but they're not good for you. Like if you develop diabetes and ice cream is still on your amygdala list, and you keep having that ice cream, and after a while you get sicker because you don't He doesn't know the difference. So this is the problem. And later on, we'll see, and I'll say it again later on, pleasure and pain are the same. They're just recorded in different parts of your brain. But the stimulus from your nervous system is the same. It's just that the mind judges it as either pleasurable or painful. But the electric impulse creating the stimulus, exactly the same. Pleasure and pain are the same. It just depends which part of your brain it gets filed in. So now we go to the opposite. And I'll talk about them together, then we'll have questions. We'll go to the opposite, which is dvesha. Okay? So dukkha, anushayi, dvesha. Dukkha is suffering, unpleasantness. Anushayi is followed by, and dvesa means aversion, dislike. So unhappiness leads to desire. Let's use the same ice cream. Okay, so you can understand how pleasure and pain are the same. It's the same object, it's ice cream. Okay. Let's narrow it down. Vanilla ice cream. Okay. So you bought the vanilla ice cream. You're about to eat the vanilla ice cream, you dig your spoon into it. And then you see, let's make it really dramatic. You see a huge cockroach this big in the middle of your vanilla ice cream. It's this big. And it's still alive. Okay. That's pretty much fucked up vanilla ice cream for you. You probably never want to eat vanilla ice cream again. And so instead of it getting filed in the amygdala, it's now filed in the hippocampus. The hippocampus records everything that you should avoid at all costs. Okay, it's the same substance, but your experience of it has put it in the other file. And so now you dislike vanilla ice cream because you always get reminded about that. Okay, pleasure and pain are the same. Because it's the same substance, it just depends on which part of your brain. That's why, you know, some people like chocolate, some people don't like chocolate. It's the same substance. Some people love sex, some people don't love sex. It depends on your experience, right? Okay. So pain, sorrow, and misery trigger a chain of hate or aversion. Recollecting lost pleasures, tormented by desires unfulfilled, mind is led to sorrow. In extreme distress, he comes to hate himself, his family, his neighbors, A discriminating person strives to acquire knowledge so that he may strike a balance between desire and aversion. Because if you live at the mercy of any of these, then life becomes quite a struggle. Does anyone have anything to say about desire and aversion?
Yeah, me. I do.
Yeah.
Kiwi? So is this basically saying that you shouldn't kind of like and dislike
Debbie, I
things?
still can't hear you.
Oh, why can't you hear me?
Turn your volume up.
I don't know why
I have
you
to
can't
turn my
hear me.
volume up. Sorry, hang on 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. So basically, is this saying that we shouldn't have likes and dislikes, or?
No, you should. You're gonna have preferences, likes and dislikes, but you shouldn't let them rule your decisions.
Oh, okay, all right.
You gotta be more discriminative than that.
Yeah, because I mean, also, even when it comes to friendships, obviously there's some people you like better than others. I mean, obviously, it's like anything, isn't it? Just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean to say you treat them unkindly or badly in any way.
Yeah,
But you're
exactly.
you're not going to buy them the ice cream.
Yeah,
Whereas you would with somebody you like better.
Yeah, no, so it's basically just having a discriminative mind and not allowing your desires and aversions to make decisions for you, right? Because sometimes, yeah, you might need to hang out with someone you don't like very much.
Yeah.
At the same time, sometimes you might need to avoid someone you really like. You know what I mean? So being discriminative really is the key. Yes, Yute.
Is this again coming back to the topic of keeping a safe distance or a healthy distance, to be a little bit detached and observing?
Yeah, again, detached and observing is the key. So it's sort of like the vairagya part, you know, a little bit not being a slave of your desires. No, amygdala records. They both record body signals. It's more of body signals. Okay, so amygdala records pleasure signals. Hippocampus records pain signals. Okay. All right. So back to what we're saying about observing your aversion or desire, being discriminative about your action, and not have the action based on the desire or the aversion. Okay. It's pretty unnatural not to have desires of any kind or have aversions of any kind. Because if you're in the human body, then you are still pretty much operating in an ego mode. No matter how small the ego is, there's still a little bit of it because you need to drive this body. So if you're in the body, there's going to be a little bit of desire, there's going to be a little bit of aversion. But what can happen is as the ego reduces, so does what you desire and what you run away from. And you will be able to catch yourself and be discriminative to make decisions that are enlightened and not based on your desires or aversions. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because I'm in this tug of war for years with this desire, this pain and thing, yeah. And for now it's smoking, but how do you? Because I've got so much help with this over the years, yeah, to stop, and then I start again, and I have all the knowledge to know why I shouldn't and how bad it is for me and how it doesn't fit in my life, but I feel like there's still a part of me that just feels like it's in me. I've been smoking so long, and when I did quit for almost a year, I didn't know who I was, and it came to that point where I got so uncomfortable.
Okay.
I smoked again.
There you go. So let's backtrack from, remember, above desire and aversion is the ego. And what's happened is the ego has decided that smoking is who you are. This is the main problem. It's not the smoking, and so you've got to go a little step higher and know who you are so strongly that, you know, first of all, smoking is not who you are, but because the ego has subconsciously put it under the data bank of you, obviously, are you going to cut your arm off ever in this lifetime? No.
Hopefully not.
No, no one wants to cut their arm off. You feel that your smoking is one of your arms. And what you need to do is deprogram the ego. And the only way you're going to do that is to really know who you are. Underneath all the things that you gathered around yourself. And again, it's looking inward, swadhyaya. who am I really? Who is this light that we call Stella? And that takes some time to go inward. They say meditate, but there are other ways. Start watching yourself on a daily basis and just dig deep and find out who is Stella. If Stella is not a smoker, if Stella is not the cabin crew, then who is she? And that's a personal thing. But really, that's what you need to do.
Okay.
And when you meditate, give smoking a different name and a different personality and a different image in your mind. Talk to it and give it a name and say, that's not me. I know you and you are not me. You know what I mean? It's just give it an alter ego so that your ego can dissociate from it. That might help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Phoebe, may I ask something else?
Yes.
So how about this very first word then, where it also says about grief? So how about when a loved one dies, or is that a different type of grief?
That's a different type of grief. We're talking about things you want to avoid.
Oh, okay. So it's fine to obviously grieve a loved one and that type of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Vivi, I have a question, because
Yeah.
when you were giving all these love and hate examples, I met people who have eating disorders, you know, and for them, this love and hate situation with food, it's like a daily based struggle. And even some of them are in the recovery, you know, but it takes time. So even though, let's say, it happened to her 5 years ago, and then she has been recovering for 3 years, you can still see that she struggles. Like whenever she eats something, she struggles, even though she's okay, she doesn't have any problems on the outside. And I can try to explain her that yes, you are not the food, you are much more important. But still, for this specific person, it will be a struggle, right?
Yes.
So how can you help her?
Deprogramming the amygdala and hippocampus. Okay. So deprogramming the amygdala and the hippocampus is really important. And that is a subconscious layer. It's not so much all the intellectual reasoning that you put forth out there is really not going to help, because like Stella was saying, yeah, I know it, but it's not really penetrating.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you
yeah.
deprogram? First
I
of
don't
all,
know.
yeah. Okay.
Psychological help, maybe then.
It
Maybe
could be
some other
psychological. They need,
hobbies.
usually people have an eating disorder because the food, why is the food in their amygdala in the first place? Because they've associated some positive life thing with that. Like even for you, Stella, it might even be beyond smoking. You've made it part of who you are. It was your identity. You associate with smoking as your identity. And that's why you don't want to part from it. We'll get there. We'll go back to you when we talk about this next one, abhinivesha. Okay? But for someone, let's say, with an eating disorder, you can say that food symbolizes something else that they want. Remember, if you go a step above to the first thing, which is that you've forgotten that you are already complete. So that food is patching up an incompleteness that they're feeling. You need to find out what that incompleteness is. Is it confidence? Do I overeat because I'm trying to be confident? Do I overeat because I'm looking for love?
But it's very, very personal. I don't think she will be like right away.
No.
Yeah, so
No, it's something maybe as you get to know the person that you can
yes.
sort of go there. But of course, from the start, you don't want to say that.
Yeah.
But at
Okay.
the end of the day, that's what it is. Because we are
Yeah.
complete, but we forgot. So we look at something outside and it becomes a symbol of our incompleteness, and you feel that that will make you complete. But usually, the symbols that we project our incompleteness on are not literal.
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, please.
Okay. Can I move on? Is there more? Okay. So finally, Abhinivesha. So Swara Shavahi Vidushaha Api Tata Arudha Abhiniveshaha. Self-preservation or attachment to life is the subtlest of all afflictions. It is food even in wise men. It is found even in wise men. So, super subconscious layer, when you feel something is part of you. For example, smoking and Stella. Or, for all the moms out there, you and your kids. You feel your kids are you. And when you behave, it's like you personify you in them. Okay. Whether it's smoking or your kids, it's still Abhinivesha, because subconsciously, you are going to start like, how do you call it? Anything that threatens your idea of how, like either smoking or the choices your kids make in life, you feel it's a threat to your life. So giving up smoking, threat to my life, because smoking is part of who I think I am. And that's why it's so hard to give up. You give it up and you feel like, who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. It's a threat to your life. It's like cutting off your arm. It's a threat to your life. So you're not going to do it. Or a mom letting go of their kid. Again, it's like cutting off your arm. So you feel that's a threat to your life. Like my son had a girlfriend for the first time when he was in like 3rd grade. I felt threatened. You understand? It's a threat to my life. Because at that point in time, I was still associating my son with my life, which we do sometimes as parents. And so the girlfriend became a threat to my life. So I was really mean to her. She's in 3rd grade. You know, I'm just using it as an example. You know, I wasn't always Zen, okay? That came later. My son's 23 now, okay? It's been a while. Okay. So you understand, I'm using it as an example. So love of life is sustained by our life force. This urge for self-perpetuation is so strong that it does not spare even the wise. Whatever you've associated with your life, you're going to protect it tooth and claw. Like I thought, for example, work was my life. So if someone more brilliantly talented and down with the boss than me comes along, and you're going to do stupid things like you're defending your life. You understand what I'm saying? But you don't even know you're doing it because of that. You have no idea because it's super subconscious. And maybe someone will call you out. Why are you so mean to them? You know, or, you know, why did you say that? You know, you might have no idea. Because it's a very deep layer. Everyone, even the wise men, have a little bit of self-preservation in their mind. which may include the things that you think are you. So if you look at who you are, so if I ask you now, who are you? If a job comes up, if your family comes up, if your talents come up, if anything like that comes up, you might be attached to those things like they're your life. And if those things go away or are threatened in any way, watch your reaction. Because that's going to give you a clue whether you've got this abhinivesha affliction inside you or not. Because it's very tricky. And it's very deep. Any questions or sharings?
Maybe can I say something?
Yeah.
Because I'm really finding it challenging not to understand, but rather to understand the fact that if someone can follow all these sutras, like there's no one can say who I am, because it will be like everybody would be the same. If all the people are able to follow these sutras, if these sutras were so I don't know how to explain myself. Maybe because I see it really more than human, because as a human you do get attached to things around you, and you do have preferences, you do have kind of addictions. If you don't smoke, maybe you're addicted to a game, maybe you're addicted to a person, maybe as you said,
Okay.
like also the love of your sons, which is
Yeah.
mother's name, much you love
So
your son.
what we need to do is following sutras. It's not so easy to eradicate all the kleshas. Like even this one, abhinivesha, it's like super subconscious. But what we need to do is recognize them when they arise and recognize where the issue lies. This is basically showing human nature. We have afflictions, but the more you practice, the more you can reduce the afflictions. But rather than make everybody the same, what will happen? So remember, life is completely subconscious, and also life is completely subjective. So we are trying to make the subconscious layers of you more visible for you to know what's going on and be more discriminative in your actions.
Yes,
So,
this one but if we want to become better, because you always mention that if you want to know who you are, and if you want to your practice to get you somewhere, so we should follow, if I understood well, as much as possible from the sutras, correct?
okay, you follow. Yes,
Now,
that is correct.
now we are 22, for example, listening to you now, 22 participants. If from the 22, 10 of us will follow as you said, so isn't that also making those 10 like they're not distinguished anymore, because we are all following the same
Okay.
I don't, I'm trying
Yeah.
to explain, but I'm not finding the words.
Okay. I think I know what you're trying to say, but what also we need to be aware of, what we need to be reminded of, is that even though God is everything, everything has manifested in different forms, including the way God manifests in people is different too. So therefore, we are different frequencies. We are different. We are different roads. Even though we're leading to the same place, how that road looks is completely different than this one. Even though at the end of the day they're all the same, but still the diversity is so beautiful. You're born with a certain constellation of stars that have shaped you into this situation that is you. And your beautiful, beautiful freedom of choice is going to lead you to shape you in a certain unique way. Although we are all God and all at the end of the day, how this particular expression of God shapes itself and plays out is unique due to the myriad of life situations that are different for everyone. So we're not gonna be the same. It's not going to be the same expression. You can think of us as different fireworks all exploding. Our nature is to explode. How we explode? Different ways. And
Yeah,
that's going to have a different result.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but following is more passive than active, because when that's what this is how I'm seeing it, because when you are becoming passive towards like for example who triggers you to get angry, or what triggers you to overeat or to smoke or to
What you
get
do is,
attacked.
it's not about being passive, it's about solving your suffering. It's solving your suffering, not about being passive. Like Stella solving her suffering, because smoking is a suffering for her. She feels bad. So how to solve that? Someone overeating, it's a suffering for them because they feel bad. So it's not so much about being neutral and not emotionally reacting. It's about solving your suffering. And the way that happens again is different for everybody. Because we're coming from a different context, a different situation.
Backgrounds, yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna take more time. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Kiwi.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I'd like to say about what you were saying and about this. You know, when we try to detach, right? Not to identify with whatever is here, right? With my profession, with family.
Yeah.
Well, I like to, but for me, from my experience, when I tried to do that, ego was like, no, like crumbling, because I mean, I had to be somebody for this world, right? For this 3D world, to be somebody. But the moment I became more comfortable with the idea that, you know, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the other. And I could see myself as I'm nothing, or I can be anything. So I'm just am. And I found peace in the way that I don't need to be, or I need to follow. I don't need to fulfill any expectations of anybody. I found some kind of like peace inside where it allowed me to see myself and then work on without bearing or thinking of how it's meant to be or what it's supposed to be for other people. You know, and it frees me.
Yeah, so you can still play the role. So you can still name yourself Laura Carvalho, and you can still work in the same way, and you can still be a family member, but still be free of suffering, knowing that you're playing a role, which might be essential, but you're beyond that role. So you're not going to be, again, pulled so much by desire and aversion, or, you know, having ego-related struggles, or having fear of losing something. And then you're free from suffering, basically. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, baby. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So those are the kleshas. And the whole point of yoga is to eradicate them. Okay. So te prati prashavayeha sukshmaha, or subtle afflictions are to be minimized and eradicated by a process of involution. So Either the affliction is in your face or the affliction is kind of underlying. Okay, so gross afflictions means, yes, I can tell, like I have an eating disorder. That's a gross affliction. A subtle affliction could be like, I think my son is my life. Okay, that's subtle. You don't know. Okay, it's underneath. So both must be counteracted and eliminated, silenced at their source. The 5 afflictions appear gross on the surface, but their subtle nature may be either dormant or highly active, or may alternate between the two. Meditation helps eradicate them. So if you look inward inside yourself, this is why it says involution. That's a process of going inward. If you look inward inside yourself, you will see the source of these afflictions. And when you find the source of the affliction, then it's easier for you to eradicate it. So the subtle afflictions begin with attachment to life and move in reverse. So attachment to life is the super most subtle affliction. Okay? Moving in reverse order, contrary to spiritual evolution, and end with the gross affliction, ignorance. Subtle afflictions should be overcome before they lead to worse trouble. How does one overcome them? If a seed becomes parched, it cannot germinate. So one must render an affliction sterile by tracing it back to its source. So, why am I behaving like this towards my son's girlfriend? That's the affliction, right? But it's underneath, so I need to look inside of myself. Once in meditation, I was meditating, and it was an inquiry, self-inquiry. And one of the questions you ask yourself is, what do I need to let go of in order to solve this problem? And the answer was your son. And actually, I'm like, what? What does that mean? Is he gonna die? You know what I mean? Because you're not thinking straight. And only after several years did I realize what it means. It means that I thought my son was my life, and that was the big problem. And that's why I was making stupid decisions and getting stressed over nothing. And at the end of the day, he's an amazing human being despite all my stress. That didn't even help to make him better because he's already that way to begin with. And all my stress had nothing to do with him becoming that way. Right? So that's a really subtle affliction. So if a seed becomes parched, it cannot germinate. Trace it back to its source. When I realized this, I started to give him more room. Didn't tell him what to do so much. Didn't harp over his schoolwork so much. Didn't ask him who he was with so much. I kind of stepped back a bit and, I told him, I'm here if you need me, but I didn't meddle anymore. And I think it kind of helped. Okay. So the father of subtle afflictions is the mind, whose movements should be directed towards the seer by the yogic process of involution. Okay. In this way, subtle afflictions are vanquished and unpolarized state of pure knowledge is attained. So the idea is to look inside and to go to the source of the affliction. Even knowing what the source is enough to eradicate it. Once you know, because it's subconscious, and subconscious isn't really always reasonable. And when you realize the deep subconscious association, especially with desires, find out what you're really looking for. This is meditation where a person keeps asking you, it's Osho, keeps asking you, what do you want? And you just have to keep answering, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? At the end of the day, it's after 21, what do you want? You get to the real, what do you want? And that helps you understand you better. and realize how many desires are tied to that one answer to what do you want. In the deepest layer of you, what do you want? And it might take you some time to get there. But if you do get there and you realize, oh my God, half my life is trying to fulfill this without me even knowing. You can try it. See what happens. That might lead you to illumination about you. Again, this is super subconscious, so it takes some time. You need to go inward, and you need to be honest with yourself. And most of all, know that the ego will resist. Because every time we improve, the ego resists. And that's why it's important to open the heart space so that when the ego does resist, you have a way of keeping it in check. Yes, Yute.
I think it's a little bit also with what we tell in most yoga classes is this letting go, to forgive yourself, to be gentle to yourself. And, you know, it all helps everybody on this road.
Yeah, be kind and stuff, understanding. Yeah, when we're reading it this way, it might seem like, boy, I have a lot to work with. But yeah, be kind and also trust the process. Because aside from introspection, there's also trusting the process that, yeah, you'll get there eventually. Just need to take one step at a time, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. We also have to learn to trust ourselves and really let go. It's like you said with the children. I know what you mean. So it's, yeah, you're fussing, you're troubling, you have sleepless nights and whatnot. And this is a big example, letting go. But others are small habits, eating your chips on the sofa or whatever. You know, all these little things, or checking on this constantly, checking on this. Let go, and you are so free, and you open your heart, as you said. It's so much nicer for you and for everybody around.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so talking about the gross and subtle afflictions. Okay, jnana he yaha tad vritaya. The fluctuations of consciousness created by gross and subtle afflictions are to be silenced through meditation. So meditation is one way of getting to the root cause of the affliction. Okay, and meditating, looking inward. Okay, point a way of controlling the modifications of thought waves. The mind is stilled through involution, the practice of renunciation, or folding in of the mind. Here, Patanjali offers meditation as another method to quiet the mind. By these means, the mind's impulses are reduced to their subtlest point, and it is compelled to rest silently in its source, the soul. So you've got three intensities: gross, subtle, and the subtlest of the subtle. Tapa, Swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana eradicate the gross, the subtle, and the subtlest afflictions respectively. Okay. Meditation. It actually really works. And there are different kinds of meditation. And, if you're really interested in trying to solve an affliction, try different kinds and see which one works for you. Klesha mulaha karma shaya drishta adrishta janma vedaniya. So Sutra 12, the accumulated imprints of past lives, rooted in afflictions, will be experienced in present and future lives. So from your past journeys, you have kleshas. You may carry them like excess baggage into the next life. Some of the afflictions you have are not from this lifetime. The preferences you have, the fears you have, they might be from previous journeys that have been rooted in you so strongly that you took them with you. So just as a joke, yeah, this is light. Yeah. I was watching a documentary last night on ancient Egypt, and it was talking about the priestess priestess cults in Egypt and how they did lots of belly dancing and drank beer all the time. And so I thought, boy, that really sounds like me. Maybe it's one of those guys. It kind of explains my love for belly dancing and beer. I don't know, right? You never know. Anyway, it's just a shallow example of, and all of these preferences, they've shaped you, they've molded you into who you are, but at the end of the day, they're not who you are, right? And you can choose to either let them go or keep doing them. So, I can choose. Okay, I can't blame it on being a priestess of Kemet or whatever, why I love beer and belly dancing. But, it's my choice. I can either decide in this life, am I still going to do that or not? But whatever choice you make, it should be one that's free of suffering. So what I decided is, I will have a beer every now and then, and I'm not going to torture myself for doing it. When I feel like it, I will have a beer. And I'll get back into belly dancing because I really enjoy it. That's my choice, and I'm not suffering that. So again, we have a choice. We're not telling you to stop doing everything because that's not who you are. And you're just going to sit there and be a statue, because that's not going to serve the world either. But you have choice. Whatever choice you make, it shouldn't make you suffer.
So Pee-wee,
Yeah.
that brings me back to what I was asking before.
Yeah.
So I forgot the name of the lady who said she's trying to stop smoking.
Yeah, Stella.
Yeah. So if, sorry to take her as an example, but this is a very, very clear example. So if Stella is not suffering from smoking and she continues smoking, like instead of smoking a pack, like you did with beer, maybe smoking her range, maybe smoking 5 a day.
Yeah.
Let's say smoking on weekends, for example. Then this would be viewed differently. And what about if Stella never suffered from smoking? For her, smoking is something that she enjoys and it's nice. It's not affecting her.
Then she wouldn't be bothered by it, and she wouldn't be talking about it this way.
Exactly. So then it will not come as an addiction and as an affliction in the sutras.
And it's not an affliction. It's just something that you do because it's not affecting you. Either you're not chasing it. If, let's say, she got to a point where if she didn't have a cigarette, she'd still be okay. And if she had one, she'd still be okay. Then it's not a problem. The problem is that, then it's literally not a problem. The problem is that she has to have one or she doesn't feel good. And then she feels bad. So that's an affliction.
Yeah, so this is exactly, because if you really go deep in the sutras and you want to really do them all step by step or one by one, or it might take you 10 years, it might take you, I don't know how long. This is not it. The thing is, because it seems like another extreme, you know what I mean? And me personally, I prefer the balance more.
What you're doing is you're mixing judgment with affliction.
Ah,
okay.
That's what
you're mixing judgment with affliction, because going back to cigarette,
yes,
you prejudged that smoking is bad. You know what I mean? But that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at desire and aversion.
Okay, so if her desire is making her suffer, then it becomes an
desire makes you suffer. Because if you can't have it, you feel bad. But if smoking was to the point that whether she had it or not, she would be okay. I don't have it, I'm okay. It's there, I'm okay to have it. Then it's not a desire anymore, is it? It's just there. You've conquered your desire. So
I see what you.
so it's a little bit of a mix between judgment and the affliction.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the accumulated imprints of past lives rooted in afflictions will be experienced in present or future lives. So if you don't want to take these afflictions to the next stage of the journey, as much as possible, we want to at least uplift ourselves enough to solve the problem now. So that's what it is. Past actions are the seeds of afflictions which give rise to other actions. Even if you don't believe in past lives, you can think of the different stages of your evolution in this life as your past lives. What you did in grade school, what you did in high school, your actions, that's karma, right? What you did when you were 20. This cumulative effect of what you did is shaping where you are now. You've carried the affliction in some way in these past renditions of you. And if you don't solve it, you're going to carry that affliction into your future. And that's going to keep causing trouble, like it's doing so now. Okay? This is known as karma. Your past actions have determined your present situation. Your present situation is the key to determining your future. So if karma, or the universal law of cause and effect, is in play, afflictions and actions intermingle and interact, and the cycles of birth and death roll on. Actions rooted in desire, greed, anger, lust, pride, and malice invite affliction. Just as those which are free from the spokes of the wheel of desire lead towards a state of bliss. So how can we be happier? Check your actions. The effects of both types of action may be visible or invisible, manifest or latent. They may surface in this life or in the future. So one's reservoir of karma is analogous to a seed. Desire, greed, and lust are shoots from the field. Life is the plant, and life's pain and pleasure are the flowers and fruits. Through the practice of Kriya Yoga, Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhana, we try to expunge in this life our residual karma. The result of negative actions needs to be wiped away, so that the only thing we have are the results of positive actions. So check your actions. Yes, you may have this desire, but you can still choose. And it's that choice that will shape your future karma. We can still choose. So we're not helpless, even though it may feel that way. You can choose to stay away from it, or you can choose to look within and go to the source, realize it, and then act. And maybe your actions will be different. Okay, so this is how we cut the chain of karma. It's a very deep thing, and meditation is crucial here. Because unless you look inside of yourself, remember, these things are super subconscious. Unless we look inside of ourselves and really check what's going on, we may not be able to perceive these things. Okay, there's this beautiful story here. Okay, so Hindu lore is full of examples of the work of this looking at your karma. There is Nandishvara, who became the vehicle of Lord Shiva, Vishwamitra, a warrior king, and etc. He's giving examples in Hindu lore. So Nahusa, king of India, was a virtuous king. When Lord Indra, king of heaven, killed the demon Vrita, he had to do penance for having killed the Brahmin. leaving heaven temporarily without a king. For his virtue, Nahusa was invited by the gods to rule heaven while Indra was away until his return. Reluctantly, he agreed, but while there, he fell in love with Indra's wife, and Nahusa made it known to Sachi that as Lord of Heaven, he considered he had a right to share her favors. To safeguard herself, Sachi asked her preceptor how she should safeguard herself. Yeah, on his advice, she acquiesced on one condition. Nahusa was to come to their tryst born on the most extraordinary, thing that they carry gods on, carried by the seven sages, Saptarishis. Yeah, lust overruled his reflective thoughts, and at once he summoned the Saptarishis and ordered them to bear his pallet. In his infatuation and anxiety to reach her, he ordered them to move fast. The Sanskrit word for move fast is sarpa, which also means snake. He lost his self-control and kicked sage Agastya. Agastya lost his temper and in his anger cursed the king with the word saprabhava, meaning become a snake. So he became a snake, and that was that. Okay. Nahusa remained a snake until one of the heroes washed off his karma. Nahusa had entwined himself around one of these guys, promising his release if only he answered all his questions, etc. The older brother comes and rescued him. Okay, this is an example of good karma, which elevated a young bull called Nandi to reach God. Nandi, the child of Kamadhenu, the cow of plenty, who yields all desires, reached the high state of emancipation through sadhana to become an attendant. So anyway, good karma comes out of positive decisions. Negative karma comes out of negative decisions. So if you have a suffering of an affliction, choose proactively in the positive direction, and that's going to help you resolve it so that you don't have to carry it to a later date. Okay. "13. Sati mule tat vipakaha jati ayu bogaha." As long as the root of actions exists, it will give rise to class of birth, span of life, and experiences. So your karma, driven by your choice, is going to determine your future state. And let's say you don't believe in reincarnation. Okay, doesn't matter, because your previous karma is the reason why you are where you are now. If you want to change your situation, change your actions, and that's going to change your future, whether it's the next life or this life. And by talking about our future, what can we change? We can change where we are. We can change your economic status. It can change who you have around you. And it can change what experiences you're going through. So your present actions can change your future, basically. But sometimes some things were meant to be, because in this system, we talk about several lives. So sometimes certain things were meant to happen to us. We agreed that this would happen to us, and that's why we're witnessing it. Like what's happening to the world now. Each and every one of us agreed to be born in this time so that we can go through this. We can go through lockdown, and we can go through all of that. We agreed. We all agreed, and that's why we were born at a certain time, and we haven't died yet, which means that we're here to witness this time. We agreed on it. And knowing that you agreed on it, this is karma. It's our karma to be here now. We agreed on it. Knowing that, how to steer from here, okay? We agreed to witness this time, but yet our actions are going to steer how we witness this time. So if you've created positive actions, how you witness this time, riding on your good merit, will be a little different than how someone is witnessing this time from a state of a lot of negative karma. And you know, a lot of religions, you know, they talk about, you know, they talk about Judgment Day. For me, Judgment Day is every day depending on your karma. Then that your actions can steer and change that. That's just my opinion. You might have a different opinion. Okay. So life itself, reading, springs from the admixture of good and bad actions, favorable and unfavorable imprints. These form one's birth, rank of life, span of life, and the kind of experiences one has to undergo. Guaranteed, if you cannot get out of an experience, you agreed to be in it. Like COVID now, we can't get out of it. You can't run anywhere. It's everywhere. Therefore, we all agreed that we'd have to go through this. Surely knowing that is kind of a relief. If I agreed to go through this, and there's some point in me going through this, then maybe that's going to change the way I act. Maybe it's going to change the way I respond. And I can maybe respond in a way that will lead me to a better place. Okay. According to the law of karma, all conditions in the nature of our birth and life stem from our past actions. And we are responsible for the experiences, pleasant or otherwise, which we meet in life. Which means it's no one's fault that this is happening to you. And the person responsible is you, because you agreed to it, whether it's pleasurable or painful. Might be kind of difficult for some people to realize that there's no good or bad, there's only experience. An experience can be good or bad depending on your actions and your choices. Okay, so the fruits of the actions gathered in this life are called samskaras, which become residual imprints or impressions. The fruits of actions committed in all previous lives are called vasanas. Okay, so samskara is I decided to do something and it's affecting me. Yeah, that's a gecko. They're huge here. They're like bigger than my cat. They're like Godzilla, the geckos here. Huge, huge, huge. Like it's Jurassic Park on my ceiling. I try not to look up. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, samskara, actions in this life that has caused karma, and that karma I take with me, and it's affecting me in a good way or a bad way. Vasana, in a previous life, I made some choices that I carried with me to this life, and it's affecting me in a good or a bad way. Okay, so we have two new technical terms, samskara and vasana. Send a Jurassic gecko pic. Okay, I'll try. Yeah, maybe later tonight. Jilan, you want one? I'll send you a pic, Jilan. Jilan's scared of geckos. At least she used to be. I don't know how scared of geckos she is now. We'll find out. Okay. So remember these technical terms, samskara and vasana. So we have 3 terms that we've now learned, and we're going to stop here. 3 terms that we've now learned: karma, samskara, and vasana. So karma, cause and effect. Samskara, the result in this lifetime of my cause and effect choices. Vasana, the results from previous lifetimes' cause and effect choices. Vasanas are impressions remaining unconsciously in the mind from past good or bad actions producing pleasure and pain. Okay. Samskaras are latent impressions in the body or the mind from my actions that may have arisen or not. Geckos don't make sounds. Yeah, they do. They're super noisy. What you see normally in the Middle East, those like cream colored ones, those aren't geckos. These motherfuckers are a foot long, huge head. They're green with yellow stripe. Or when they try to camouflage, they're pink with red stripes. So they're not the ones that you see in the Middle East, the little cute little white ones that don't make any noise. No. All right. I distracted the crowd. It's okay. It's okay. We're ahead of time. Yeah, I've actually finished I've actually already finished my delivery of information. Africa, they too look like dinosaurs. Yeah, I'd love to see some African geckos. Anyone has a picture? Oh, monitor lizards, they're even worse. They're like a meter long. I saw one 2 meters long. Holy shit, it was so scary. Okay, all right. We have all that here. Okay, so we're gonna stop there in our Yoga Sutras. Does anyone have anything to say? Yeah.
Need time to digest. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's okay for you guys not to agree with everything I said, because some people don't believe in past lives and all this stuff. The most important thing, though, the practical advice to take from this is watch your actions, check your actions, because this is the reason why you are where you are now. Your past actions are why where you are now, and you need to take responsibility for them. You're not helpless because you have choice. So don't ever think you're helpless. But you have to take ownership for previous choices. And now, let's try to make more enlightened choices by looking inside and going to the root cause of all of these afflictions. And meditation can help you. Introspection can help you. Asking God for help can help you. There's different ways that life can help you. And use them all. It doesn't hurt. So I'll stop here. We've got maybe 15 minutes. And
Anyway, before you stop,
yeah.
regarding the choice, because you said that you all came here by choice,
Yes.
right?
Yes, that's right. That's
And
right.
as you did, it's very hard to digest.
It is hard because not everything that we decided to choose is pleasurable.
Yeah, not only this, not understandable as well, because when the explosion in Beirut a week ago, it more than like so many kids died, and one girl that 4 years old. Like why would a soul choose to come and to die at 4 years?
Maybe because they only needed 4 years of life to move on. You know, sometimes some highly evolved souls only need a little bit of life to be able to ascend to the next level of the journey. And people die young because that's all they need.
That's a beautiful way of seeing that, by the way.
Yeah, because they're going to be angels. If you look at it, they only need that much. So we're only looking at the big picture, at that little picture. We don't see the big picture. It's not available to us. And this is another reason why we suffer. Again, the big picture is that the universe, and the little street view is us. And in the street view, there's a lot of suffering because we don't see the big picture. We only see the finite, limited version of everything. Like, you know, someone told me, just to share something personal, talking about Egypt. Egypt's been coming up a lot. But once someone told me something really important, because I was wondering why I felt so driven in what I do now. It's like I'm running three YTTs at the same time now. Three. Why am I doing? So one day someone told me, when I was in Egypt, I had an army of assholes that went around hurting people. Okay, I was the head of the army of assholes that went around hurting people. With you know, I used spiritual techniques to fuck people up, basically.
Oh my God.
My army of assholes. And the reason why I'm like this in this life is I'm creating an army of yogis to heal the world, to make up for it.
That's beautiful.
So the bigger picture drives us to be how we are.
Yeah.
And you can either choose it or not, choose to accept it or not. You know, it's like I could have chosen not to do this, but you see, every other choice I've made in my life, except for training yoga teachers, has led to disaster. Like every single one. And the reason being is because that's what I chose to do in this life. And if I don't choose to do what I agreed to do in this life, I'm going to suffer. And I don't suffer anymore, even though I work 12 hours a day. You know, I'm happy doing it. So that's just an example.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. G.I. Jane Yogi, who's in? When we chose for this life, we chose to learn and experience without judgment into good and bad. Yeah. At the end of the day, good and bad is a judgment. We don't know how some bad actions can lead to your good later on. And some actions that we thought were good will actually, you know, like experiences that are bad might lead you to something good later on. So we don't know now if some bad experience has led you to something good, then you can't really call it bad anymore. Because that was necessary to get you over here. You know? Okay. That's it then. We could discuss forever, it's true. So let's call it a day. So you can just go inward and make it useful to you on a personal note. So thank you for the day, your energy, your effort, your intensity. And now we end the day, and that's it.
Thank you, baby.
Okay.
Phoebe.
You guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Phoebe. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Pee Wee.
Okay, you do it.